All right. Welcome, our full coaches. Welcome, Laura, to this LinkedIn Live.
Thank you. Thanks.
Just wanted to introduce the topic a little bit and how to legally protect your coaching business, and a few words about Laura before we jump into the questions and what we're going to cover today. So Laura is a lawyer with 10 plus years of experience in the legal field. And at some point, sorry to hear that you've hit a burnout in the profession and switched to teaching yoga. Sounds fun. Eventually, and running your business online sounds idyllic. Living in Greece now, right? Yeah. So eventually, Laura started looking around and seeing how fellow business owners were protecting themselves from the legal perspective. And I'm sure you've seen some surprises out there, which Laura to set up a business that is now helping online business owners and coaches in particular to help them legally protect their business from a few different angles and make sure that you have all the stuff set up from the get-go, and also do it in a way that's a bit, a lot more fun and personal. And you typically have your cat present as well, right?
She's right. Yeah.
Is she here? Say hello. Hi. What's her name?
She's Freya.
Freya.
She even said
meow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I've come across Laura on LinkedIn. I've just been absolutely loving your energy and just the questions that you were raising in people's minds. And it even got me wondering. So I've set up my practice quite a few years ago, but I'm still thinking, is there something that I might have missed? But otherwise, this life is for coaches who are just getting started and launching the practice and thinking, what should I cover the legal side of things to make sure I'm protected? And also for coaches who are a little bit later on the journey and might have like a new direction to their business, like a group setting or an online course, and how to set things up correctly there, as well as, so we're going to touch upon different geographies, how to think about when you have across the pond in the US, in Europe, in other locations around the world, how to even like wrapping your head around what you need to have in place there. And also what are different options for legal support and how to start looking for it and who to ask. There anything else to add in terms of the introduction?
I feel like we've covered everything basically, and it sounds like when you put it out like this, it sounds like a lot to cover in just like 20 minutes, half an hour. But let's see how we're gonna get around it. Just to anyone watching, coming from my audience on LinkedIn, maybe Katrin, would you mind introducing yourself so they know a little bit more about what you do and the people that you help?
Yes, good point. I forgot about that.
Just a tiny little bit.
I'm a business mentor and a coach, CTI trained, ICF, PCC accredited, and I now run and coach Accelerator program for coaches, where I basically help coaches who are starting out or in the first years of their practice to start earning as well as they did in the corporate world, or make this transition while they're still in the corporate world, because. Yeah, I totally, like, I've seen this happen for myself, and I've now helped many other coaches to achieve that level of income. And I really can see how that is totally possible, and why not get even, the same level of pay, even better paid when working for yourself. So, all right, cool. We're ready. I can see we're able to get some comments from LinkedIn, actually. Hi, Susan. Lovely to see you. She's like, Frey's very social.
So social. She is. All right, she keeps like chatting.
So for anyone listening live, please do drop your questions in the comments, so we'll be able to see them here, and we'll prioritize those questions and aim to get through the other bits as well. All right, over to you, Laura.
Perfect.
Where do we start? Right. So imagine, you are a semi-new coach. Either you've already had a few clients or you're just getting started. We do have the ICF provide us with a general coaching agreement, which is, I think it's US law based. It's not like country specific. It's quite basic. I mean, how should we think about this whole shebang?
Yeah. What do we do? Yeah, so like first of all, I just want to recognize and acknowledge that there are so many things to take into account when you, like, first of all, quit your corporate job and go out and start serving your own coaching clients and build that foundation. Maybe it's like, okay, I want to get the website in place and I have to figure out like how to market myself. And then at some point, someone like me pops up in your LinkedIn feed and like, have you thought about terms and conditions? Do you actually have legal protection in place? And I get that it can be like confronting and a little bit overwhelming to be reminded of this, because so many small business owners, new business owners, they have this idea that like, well, my business isn't big enough to like that I need to contact a lawyer. Like that's only something that big companies do. And I've also heard that lawyers are so super expensive. So like, how am I even going to be able to pay for that if I only have like 1 or 2 clients to begin with? The next thing I would say is that if you get a template like the one you get from this, is it a foundation or an organization that kind of like supports coaches in the US and worldwide? Is that correctly understood?
It is like the kind of the governing organization for the coaching profession that accredits coaches. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say it's definitely a good place to start, to have a template in place like that, or a contract in place that's based off of something that an official organization has said, okay, cool, here's what you need to consider. But that said, it's really important to keep in mind that there can be clauses in there, that can be legal wording in there that doesn't necessarily apply to your business, or that has to be reworded one way or another depending on how you've structured your business. And also, like, because it comes from the US, if you are a coach, for instance, we're both in Europe, there are some differences between the legal systems, obviously, between all countries. There are different rules that apply. And if you're someone who doesn't have your company incorporated in the US, it would be really important to run through the clauses and be like, cool, okay, does this actually work under the jurisdiction where my company is incorporated? Does that make sense? Let me know if I go like a little bit too much in like lawyer language. I try not to.
That's all clear to me. If you have any questions in the people listening live, feel free to put it in the chat, in the comment box. So overall, like, what would you say are the key things to have in place when you are setting up?
Yeah. So there are a couple of different things to consider, because it's great to get this template from the organization and have that in place to send to your one-to-one coaching clients. But that said, most coaches also have some form of online presence or a website where it's like, cool, here are my services, I'm promoting myself, I'm putting myself out there. Maybe there's even some information on this website. And there are 2 quite important documents to have in place on your website. One is a set of terms and conditions that kind of set out like, okay, here are the rules, and this is how we play when you browse around on my website. And the other thing is a privacy policy. It's not something that I cover, because that's very specific to lawyers that specialize in data protection, but it's actually required by law, I think, no matter where you are in the world, to have a privacy policy on your website. Obviously, when people are like putting out their data, like personal information, like names and email addresses, maybe you have a freebie on your website and you're collecting that kind of stuff, it's important to have a privacy policy and a set of terms and conditions on your website. Mm-hmm. Now, the second thing is, once you start getting these clients, maybe you have someone. Coaching is quite expensive. So if you have someone who's paying you like, I don't know, $2,000 plus for a coaching container for a couple of weeks or months or whatever it looks like, that's quite a big chunk of money to just transfer from one bank account to the other. So we want to have this client agreement, client service agreement in place that you can send out to your coaching clients and say, okay, cool, we've agreed that you're going to be my client, I'm going to coach you, here's exactly what it's going to look like, and this contract is going to cover like, what are the goals you're going to work towards, like, what do the services look like, do you meet up in person to do this coaching, do you do it online, how many coaching calls are included, what's the duration of the calls, do you have some kind of support going on in a Facebook group, via Voxer or WhatsApp? When are you available for that kind of stuff? Putting those sort of like describing the service is really important, because that way you as the business owner know exactly what it is that you're offering, but it's also very clear to your client exactly what they can expect from you. Now, the second thing that this contract should include is a clear overview of the investment, or the price, the payment basically, that this client is going to pay to you. And I've seen a lot of people be like, okay, cool, I really want this coaching, but it's such a big investment, I can't pay it all up front. So maybe you agree on a payment plan. It's really important then that the contract outlines, cool, here's the total investment for this coaching package. Maybe you're going to pay it through 6 different installments. What is the amount for each installment? When is it due? And what happens if a client suddenly doesn't pay? Like what kind of steps are you going to be able to take? And that obviously is going to look different for each client. Like maybe you have some kind of framework that you follow, but depending on what the client's needs are, this is something you're going to have to go in and change every time you get a new client. But that doesn't mean we can't work off a template that reminds you, okay, cool, here are the things I need to take into account. This is how I fill it out. And that's the starting point.
Got it. Yes,
Yeah.
the coaching agreement for sure. And then, if you have a website, have the privacy policy and terms and conditions as the absolute minimum. Would you say that's enough to get started?
I would say that's a really good starting point. I see a lot of new business owners that don't have this in place. I know business owners that have been in the game for many years that don't even have this in place, and they just wing it. So it's not to say that you can't operate your business if you don't have it. It's a risk that you take. But if you want to be in control up front, have this clarity, and just feel like, okay, I know exactly how it works every time I get a new client, then this is definitely where I would put my energy first.
Mm-hmm. And would you mind sharing, like, from your experience, like, what kind of risks is this protecting us from? What would have been your experience if someone didn't have one of those things in place? Like, where are those risks coming from?
Yeah, so I feel like payment is definitely the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. So say you have someone who's agreeing to pay you on a payment plan, and you give them access to everything up front. That's a really risky situation. And that's where I would go in and first of all, describe in the contract what is the payment plan, what do you get access to, and what happens if you don't pay. Because if you deliver the entire coaching container and you've agreed with your client that they're just going to pay at the end when you've delivered all 12 coaching sessions, and then they don't pay, then you're in a really bad situation from the business owner point of view. And that's where having a contract in place can be really beneficial, because you actually have a legal document to go back to and say, I'm actually not that interested in offering coaching without you paying some portion of the amount upfront. So I think that's definitely the biggest thing. Now, another thing could be operating in this really international environment with but I think both of us, we're from a different country. Our business is incorporated somewhere. We live somewhere else. We have clients from a third country. And it's like, okay, it's a lot. How exactly do I protect myself here? Now, in this situation, if you don't have a contract and there's some kind of issue that arises, like with a refund request, or a client who's like, I actually don't think that you've delivered what I thought you would deliver. I'm not satisfied with the service. And maybe they take you to court, like worst case scenario. But in this situation, even before you go to court, it's nice to know, okay, cool, which country's laws apply here? Where am I going to go and look for information, look for answers in the law if something comes up and I need to sort out this issue, maybe ask a lawyer. If you have a contract, it's going to be clearly stated in that contract that the laws that you refer back to are the laws of the country where your company is incorporated. If you don't have a contract, it's a little bit more messy. And maybe if you're dealing with consumers, there is a chance that that you would have to comply with the laws of your client's country, which could be on the other side of the world. And that can be a little bit scary and also expensive in terms of legal fees.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I would have had a question related to that. When you talk about contracts, how can you manage different jurisdictions? You use what law to be applicable? Like I have kind of a similar question. I moved between the UK, France, and Spain since I've been running my coaching practice. Is it up to me to choose where I want to go to court if I need to, or how do you decide on that?
Yeah, so I would always suggest that for your contracts and for your terms and conditions, you choose the country where your company is incorporated, because that feels the most safe to you and your clients are accepting these terms. But another thing I would say, like for instance, when it comes to contracts in general, especially in the online space, of course there are different rules that apply, but it's at some level we have to tie into what are the internationally recognized standards. If you sit in some country and you're like, I'm going to have all these like super weird legal terms because that's what it says in the laws of, I don't know, France or Australia or whatever, and you send this contract to a client who's in another country and they're like, what exactly is this? It doesn't make any sense. We want to make sure that the terms are as good as they can, somehow at a level that feels recognized internationally. And you will see this when you read terms and conditions online, that it's quite generic language. There are so many different rules that apply, like depending on the area. But when it comes to contracts, it's at the end of the day, it's about like ensuring what service are you delivering, how are you liable, and what's the payment going to be.
Mm-hmm. And how does that change for self-employed people? Because you have all this options. Lots of coaches in the UK. I know self-employed. You have this different statuses like autonomo, like entrepreneur in France, for example, and in Spain. How does that change the jurisdiction?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
If you don't have a company that's incorporated, but you are signing a coaching agreement as a self-employed person, not as part of a company,
I would still refer back to the country where you live, or where you feel like where you pay your taxes, the country where you feel comfortable, like this feels like my home country, and I would be comfortable contacting a lawyer in this jurisdiction. That's where I would go. Yeah.
And if it's different, sorry, I'm just going for my personal questions now. I'm in Spain. I prefer to deal with anything legal in the UK. Is it totally up to me?
I would say it comes back to you, what feels right to you. And this is the difference between actually what I would refer to as a proactive legal strategy as opposed to a reactive legal strategy. If you set your contracts up front, you get to decide where do you want to refer back to, which law, which country's law do you want to apply here. You can choose that. If suddenly you don't have anything in place and you have a customer who comes and sues you, you don't have the same control over which country you're going to refer back to.
Got it. Yeah, Mauri, let us know if that answered your question, or if you have any follow-up questions on that. Actually, something that we talked about just a little bit earlier that I was curious to hear your opinion. So as coaches, we do have this contract oftentimes when people have this option to pay in installments. And it's always been my question in my mind, okay, I know that it protects me from delivering more work without them paying for the next installment. I understand that I'm protected from that by the contract. But on the flip side, I can't really see an option where like I'd take someone to court because they don't pay an extra installment. So is that the idea, that you're sort of protected from doing more than what's in the contract? Or do people take clients to court? Does that happen?
I would say, like, at the end of the day, with litigation and going to court and all of this, there are very high legal fees involved with this. And it's usually there's even like a monetary amount or value where it's like, okay, cool. Like, at least I can only speak for Denmark right now, but I think in Denmark it comes back to if the monetary value of the dispute that you're having, if it's less than 50,000 Danish kroner, that's like, excuse my currency calculation here, let's say like 7,000 euros, maybe the similar amount for US dollars, which a lot of coaching would be less than this amount. It actually wouldn't be relevant to take it to court because that amount would already be eaten up by legal fees from your lawyers. So like there is a process, at least in Denmark, that you can take your own case to court and go for it. But that's again where I would refer back to like, okay, what is the type of business owner you want to be? What is the type of strategy you want to follow in your business? Like personally, I don't really subscribe to this like negative energy of like, oh, okay, I had this client who didn't pay me and now I have to like pursue them and write angry emails. Like this is my personal opinion. It's not legal advice. It's just like, I would not pursue that. I would just be like, well, tough luck, better protect myself next time, moving on, inviting aligned clients in that actually pay me.
Okay. All right. So now it's good to know, like, I also have this feeling that it's more for me to know I don't have to continue past a certain point.
And that's exactly something you would write in the contract, that it's like, cool, if I've asked you 4 times to pay and you're still not paying, I'm fully entitled to kick you out of this container, not refund you, and like, goodbye, we're not working together anymore, just closing it down properly. But it's a little bit more muddy if you don't have a contract that explains this process.
Exactly. Yeah, and for those of you who might be confused about why we're talking about Denmark suddenly, so Laura practiced her law for, I think the majority of your time in Denmark. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm educated in Denmark. Yeah.
That's why we kind of went there. But here's the kind of the more around the geographical topic. Since you've practiced law in Denmark, you live in Greece, you help coaches all around the world, working with clients all around the world.
How exactly do we do this? And I guess that's your question, right?
And how do you even think about like for different people, coaches listening in, sitting like Susan is in Germany and serving clients in outside as well, outside the country, and how do we decide where to get support and how to think about our contracts?
So this question comes up every time I speak with a new client or someone who's considering to work with me, and I've really had to wrap my head around it as well, because it is quite difficult. Obviously, I can't go out and advise on US laws or even German laws because I'm not qualified there. But for instance, I had someone that I was speaking to yesterday who has her company incorporated in some EU country, and she's like, cool, okay, Laura, I already have a lawyer who's like helped me set up my company. She's helped me like get all the structures in place, and now I'm ready to get the contracts in place. But I feel like if I ask this local lawyer to draft my specific contracts for my online business or my coaching business, my national local lawyer, she doesn't know how to do that because she doesn't understand the type of work that I'm doing. She doesn't understand how just posting on LinkedIn suddenly turns into a coaching client. So she reached out to me and she was like, Laura, I get that you understand the online business well, you understand the coaching well, and you understand how to write these contracts so it fits my specific business. So what I do is I merge basically the industry knowledge that I have in online business and coaching from my own experience, because I've been building my own business like this. But at the same time, I mix it with all the knowledge I have from writing contracts, especially commercial contracts, terms and conditions. And I bring those two together. Now, what I would say to a client like this is, as I said, I'm licensed in Denmark. I cannot advise on like the laws of Germany or the laws of France, but I can draft these documents for you up front. And then either we will work together to find a local lawyer in your country who can read through them. This is something that all like law firms work with as well, is like we can advise within our own jurisdiction, but then we're going to have to collaborate with a lawyer from your country who can go through the documents and say, okay, cool, this actually makes sense, but wait a moment, just in this clause, add this little requirement because we have this piece of legislation in our country that says X, Y, Z. If you add this little text in, you're going to be compliant. And that way you can secure that you have very like industry specific contracts in place, but at the same time, you're compliant with the laws of your own country. And then the templates that I work with, they actually came from the US. So I know that at least the templates I work with, they're recognized under the US, like different jurisdictions there. I see it with my Danish EU glasses and I'm like, cool, this makes sense as well. So I would really, as I said before, we need to operate within these internationally recognized standards. Otherwise, it just gets really messy.
Got it. Yeah, and is it so? I think that's really helpful that you bring kind of more overall, more general understanding of the online business, coaching business, having looked at many contracts in that space, you tailor something, and then so the fees that you have to pay to someone locally just really kind of brings that down, because they don't have to start all of that from scratch, right? It's just more like just checking things over. But if we have Susan here registered in France, living in Germany, clients across Europe, and then if say there's a client in the US, how does that change the complexity? Do you also have to then go to a lawyer in the US additionally, or?
I wouldn't do that, because like basically every time you would have a customer come from a new country, it's like, cool, okay, now I have even more legal fees because I need to get these terms and conditions reviewed by a lawyer from that country. Like, obviously you could do that if you wanted to be really, really, really safe, but sometimes it's also just about assessing the risk and being pragmatic and being like, okay, cool. Susan's example, for instance, business registered in France, let's get that reviewed by a French lawyer. Living in Germany, if you would feel more comfortable having a German lawyer look at it as well, you could do that. I wouldn't necessarily advise that. But already having that in place would give you a really good foundation.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, just maybe for people to get like a general idea in terms of the budget, when you're setting this up, just to have the basics covered, like we discussed, in terms of to have those drafted kind of contracts and have them. I know the fees per country will vary a lot in terms of how much people will take to review things, and just very, very rough idea, like what should we put aside to get this part of our business well set up?
Yeah, I would put at least $2,000 aside for this.
Mm-hmm. So that should be enough to have it kind of created and checked.
It depends on what your local lawyer charges. So the way that I've set up my prices is that I always offer a fixed price. I talk to the business owner and I say, cool, what does your business look like? What are your services? How can we set this up? And then I offer a contract package always on a fixed price. If we need to get on calls, if they need to send me emails, if we're sending text messages back and forth, I don't charge extra for that, because the most important thing for me is that their documents are like fitted to their business. This is very different from how most lawyers price and charge, because if you go to a normal lawyer around the corner, they'll say, cool, okay, I can help you, and I'll just start like ticking with the clock, because most lawyers bill by the hour. So if I ended up spending 20, 30 hours on getting this contract package in place, the price would look very different. So when you go out and talk to a local lawyer about getting this review for your own jurisdiction in place, it's really important to get a fee up front, or like an estimate or quote, just to have an idea of how much time are they going to spend plowing through this contract. Because I've seen lawyers who are like, cool, okay, let's just spend 6 hours going through this, when that's not relevant at all.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. It really saves on the fees on the other side. I can see that. And I also, when I was getting set up, and also as my business was evolving from a one-on-one practice, when I had a bit of a shorter contract, like the things that you mentioned in place, but there's a bit of a balance. We don't want to create like super long contracts for one-on-one clients. Just, I don't know. I find that it's a bit heavy for the person to read through everything and check. Now that I have a group program, there's a lot more included, because I need to protect the confidentiality of the conversations and of how people share information within the group and with each other, and what they create in terms of their marketing. So now I have like a 7-page contract to look over, and I stand by it. I think it's important to have that in place right now. And one thing that kind of helped me, I went to like when you search for this kind of services online, you see those organizations pop up. I found one in the UK that provides you with contract templates for their jurisdiction at a really reasonable price. But I did sort of look at it and think, okay, I want to have a few more clauses included on this topic. So I've sort of like looked at it and had paid someone to just check over it. But like in terms of the quality of legal help, what should we be careful about? And what kind of help, like how can we tell if the help we're getting is of a high standard?
Yeah, so there are a couple of different options that you can choose from. And what I see a lot of people do who are in the online space is they refer to these, I call them like online template shops, but basically platforms or individual lawyers who draft some kind of bundle of contracts to say, okay, cool, if you operate an online business, if you operate a coaching business, here's what you need. And it's a little bit similar to the coaching contract we talked about from the organization, that you can just download that. But no one has guaranteed that that template is applicable to your business. It hasn't been fitted to your business. It's a little bit, if I have to give an example from marketing, it's kind of like having a business coach who's writing content prompts for you, full of brackets with like, insert the pain point, insert the desire, insert call to action. If you just took that with all the brackets and posted that onto your LinkedIn without changing anything, it's a little bit similar when you download a template from an online template shop and you're like, cool, I don't really know what these brackets are. And it says here, like, insert price, like, whatever, I don't care. This is just what I'm going to put on my website. That looks so unprofessional. No one would go and post like a template content prompt on their LinkedIn the same way you don't want to just download a template contract and post that onto your website or send to your clients. So that's the first thing I would look at with template shops, is like, cool, like they can definitely keep the cost down, but then I would always make sure to like get some kind of lawyer to review that for you. Make sure that this is fitted, because there might even be terms in there that are like, yeah, you can write it like that, but because you're doing business this, that, or the other way, this doesn't apply to you. We have to rephrase that.
Yes. Well, it's like getting a personalized service with anything, right? They take the time to understand how you work, who your clients are, where they come from, so that you have a more, target, like tailored contract to you.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. What else did we say we're going to cover? Do we have any other questions from the group? I would just have some discussion around the fees. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So let us know if there are any other questions there. So, we'll talk about the geography, the different, the templates and where to get help. So one thing that I also notice, coaches sometimes, I work a lot with coaches who are signing up clients one-on-one, and at some point in their journey, they grow to, fill up their practice, that they need to move to a group setting, or they just decide to have an online course in parallel to the one-on-one work. How does that change the whole legal setup, having an online coaching course versus, like an automated course versus
and like the famous passive income that everyone in the online space is chasing.
That's right.
This is actually something that I would target up front in the legal document. So I have a client right now who is like just starting out on this journey. She's starting to get one-on-one clients, and I'm drafting her legal documents at the moment. And what I'm doing in her documents is essentially to say, okay, cool, I know that your vision for your business is to start building more of an online universe here. Basically, you want to have ebooks, you want to have digital products, you want to have group programs, online courses, all of that. And this is something we can work with in contracts to add in different definitions. So I've just taken all the different options that she's presented to me that she wants to do, like, cool, you want to have an online course, you want to have a digital product. I define those things up front in her legal documents so that she doesn't have to come back to me in 6 months when she's like, I added this ebook to my website. Now what? I'm like, cool, we already covered that.
That's awesome. So you can just have that all in one contract.
You can have that in one contract, because it all comes down to how you define it. You don't need to go in and say, I have this ebook that's called this, and it was published on that date. We can go in with the way we phrase the wording in the contract and say everything that falls into this category, online course, whether that be pre-recorded, masterclass, group setting, whatever, everything that you can think about. And that's where it's really beneficial that I have all this experience from my own online business, because I see exactly the options that I've considered for my own business, what I've seen from other coaches and online business owners. Like, okay, cool, here are the options. Let me see how I can tie all of that into the definition of an online course in her contract.
Got it. I saw there was someone signed up to, I don't know if he's watching live, someone who has an online course that is a standalone product. It's not like it could be one-on-one plus this online course together. But when you're setting up an automated course as a separate product, what does that, we covered that the basics for one-on-one work, the terms and conditions, privacy, and the core agreement. what do you need for an online course to be protected? Because there are other things that come into play here, right? Like the copyright and like how different jurisdictions again.
What do we do then? Yeah,
Different
and it actually is. Yeah, but it's the same as what I was talking about before. This is where it's really important to have the terms and conditions on your website, because they're going to like generally cover your business. And this is something that like he'll have this whole customer journey set up on his website, that someone goes to the website and is like, okay, cool, I want to purchase this online course, click the button, directed to a sales page, read about the course. Cool, that sounds like me, presses the button, I want to go to the checkout page. And then on the checkout page, you have like filling in the card information. And then at the bottom, it's like you do this everywhere where you do online purchases, is like before you press purchase, there's this little tick box at the bottom where it says, I accept whatever company's terms and conditions and privacy policy. And this is where you would throw in your terms and conditions to make sure every time you have this like passive purchase of your online course, you're still legally protected.
Got it. Would you mind sharing what you see as some of the biggest mistakes people do with the, terms and conditions for that kind of work?
Like, do you mean in terms of how to implement it, or like, because I would say like not having
clauses, or like things that definitely needs to be in there, things that you can.
Yeah. So this is actually the side that I don't speak so much about in my content, because obviously it's super boring. It's like really getting geeky on the legal side of what the terms and conditions look like. But what does it say? It says like it introduces your company. It introduces the responsibilities that you take.
Maybe, Laura, maybe it's just better, like, if anyone's here interested in that kind of work, like I know that you offer a free legal consultation for 30 minutes. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
They can book on your on your LinkedIn page, and you can go through the boring stuff together.
Yeah, exactly. I think and this is something you can go on whatever random website and browse through. You could even go onto my website and see, okay, what's the structure of this? It's something I walk through with my clients when I've drafted the document, like, cool, here's what it looks like, here's the structure, but it's very, very detailed into the legal clauses. So I think just for the sake of the audience here, I wouldn't dive too much into it.
Got it, absolutely. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with us today that we haven't covered?
No, I think the only other thing we were talking about was in terms of what's the right time to get these types of contracts in place. Yeah. And like, obviously, I would say like it's a personal matter as a business owner, but as a lawyer, I would have to say as soon as possible, like ideally before you even make a sale. But at the same time, being pragmatic, because we also need to be able to actually pay for these documents. So as soon as you feel like the pressure is building, like if you're starting to have recurring income of, I don't know, 5,000 euros every month, maybe it's about time to start thinking about these things, but I would have to say as soon as possible.
Got it. Wonderful. And could you share, like, before we wrap things up, like how do you help coaches, and what's the best way to get in touch with you to find out more about your work?
Yeah, so I am really active on LinkedIn. I try to post every single day about some kind of legal topic, and I'm at my name, Laura Lang, and all the information is on my profile. If you want to book a free legal consultation, I offer 30-minute consultations to like go through your business, understand what contracts you need, and all the information is on my profile to book one of those. It's totally for free and like no strings attached. I am like quite picky about what types of clients I work with as well, because as you can hear, this is a very like niche area as well. So I want to make sure that I can actually serve these clients as best as possible.
Yeah, thank you. And just like, thank you for bringing your wonderful energy to this work, because it can get so tedious looking and talking about this stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's so much
just
anxiety.
bring your zen, yogic, and fun energy like into your posts, and so how you're showing up here, and like having your cat on your lap. It just makes this whole process so much more enjoyable. So thank you for being that. And yeah, for anyone watching who may not know about my program, so if you are curious in getting help on the other side of the business, so more like around the business development and the marketing for your coaching practice, to help you start signing up one-on-one clients and start making between 5,000 to 10,000 euros a month consistently, come this way. We don't have. We're currently booked out for until this middle of the summer. So, but always happy to have a conversation, to offer a free business consultation for you as well. You can just go to my LinkedIn profile and book an appointment from there. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Laura. Look forward to continuing to keep up with your journey and your brilliant tips on LinkedIn. And yeah, maybe we'll find another topic to chat about together next time.
Yes, for sure. Something less anxiety-inducing for sure. Thank you, Mara and Susan and Katrin and everyone who is here watching live.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Let's Freya say goodbye. She's gonna meow us goodbye.
She jumped down into her basket, so she's not here.